All right, so we had the gathering of clouds, and then we're having the clouds burst. We're having the storm that's actually starting, and a lot of things happen in this chapter. Um, First thing, they try to have another parley. They try to have another meeting with Thorin. The elves and the men do, and they reveal that they have the Arkenstone. They try to make a deal with Thorin. Thorin gets super mad at Bilbo, as you can imagine. Almost throws him off the wall, throws him off the gate that they've created. Gandalf appears and says, "You are not making a very splendid figure as King under the Mountain," which is definitely true. And Thorin probably hasn't been the most. I don't think Thorin is many people's favorite character in The Hobbit, even before getting to this point. But he has been willing to do a lot for his underlings, right? I think absolutely he would have sacrificed himself for any one of his friends. I think we saw that one of the previous chapters when he went to go and save a couple of dwarves who were stranded when the dragon was first coming, and he has Bilbo, Fili, and Kili, I think Balin maybe as well, stay in the cave to be safe. But he doesn't himself stay in the cave. So he has been a good leader up to this point. So why is he suddenly showing this disloyalty to Bilbo? Obviously, he's very mad about this Arkenstone, this family heirloom. But they never would have made it if it wasn't for Bilbo being here. And I think we could read between the lines a little bit here and speculate as to the effect that the dragon is having on Thorin. I think that there is something wrong with this treasure hoard because of the dragon sleeping on it for so long. I think that is part of the reason why Thorin is not making such a splendid figure as King Under the Mountain. Thank goodness, book's not over. He'll have a redemption arc. We'll see. It's always fun when a character has a redemption arc, but at this point, he is probably in his lowest moments as king. So they make the deal. They'll give up some treasure for the Arkenstone. They'll go their separate ways. But really, Thorin is already planning on double crossing. He sends messages to Dane, his cousin, who's coming with an army of dwarves, to come faster. They do make it there, and they have this kind of standoff with the army of the men and elves. And the Elven King says something I think is really cool. "Long will I tarry ere I begin this war for gold." Or in other words, I'll wait a long time before I start fighting for treasure. He does not want to get violent. He does not want to shed blood for this treasure. He is very interested in it, maybe unhealthily so. It's part of how he was described, how he wants to have a larger treasure hoard of his own because he's kind of jealous of other elf lords. But he still has his priorities, right? He still does not want to fight these other races for something as base and corrupting as treasure can be potentially, which I think is very admirable. Again, elves are good people, even if they're like the wood elves and they're more dangerous and less wise than the elves of Rivendell. Even if they were not very kind to the dwarves as they were going through the forest, they still do not want this war. They do not want to be in this fight, which I think is very important. They're about to fight, though. The dwarves are just about to launch their attack. Arrows are flying. And then Gandalf appears again and tells them all to stop. Hey, the goblins are coming. And they have this massive battle. Bilbo puts his ring on, disappears, kind of just watches, doesn't really play an active role in the battle, which makes sense. And eventually gets hit on the head and doesn't see the end of the battle, essentially. They do win the battle. But I want to talk about what I would say is the biggest catastrophe that we've seen in this book. So remember, that's like a positive twist, brings unlooked for joy, like a rescue, kind of a good catastrophe that will turn a bad situation on its head, make everything go good. What is the catastrophe that we see in this chapter? get the Eagles coming. Bilbo sees them. The Eagles are coming. The Eagles are coming. But that's not it, in my opinion. I think the biggest catastrophe is the goblins showing up. It may seem a little bit counterintuitive. We don't want the goblins there. We don't want to have a big fight with a massive battle of goblins. But think of it this way. They stopped the elves and the men and the dwarves from killing each other. They showed up at just the right moment. If they showed up a little bit later, they would have come up against them already killing each other. But they stop it just by their presence. And not only would it have been bad for them to come up on a weakened army of elves and men and dwarves, because they would probably have won the battle very easily, but they stopped the whole thing from happening. They stopped these good races from turning on each other. Think of it, even if the goblins had shown up a little bit later, even if the good guys had still been able to win, there would have been massive bad feelings toward each other. The dwarves would not have been at peace with the men or the elves, which would have gone very poorly for all involved, I think. And it would have been really sad for that to have been the way that relationship ended. So kind of weird, but the catastrophe was the goblins coming. So we've had the dragon killed. We've had our massive battle with the goblins. It's time to start wrapping up the book, essentially. So we'll see what happens in these next few chapters.